I think I'm gonna do a little more garlic powder just because that's just who I am as a human. And I'm not gonna apologize for it. So, you know, that's the kind of content that I put out on this channel, okay? Live your life and eat as much garlic as you want. I'm trying to keep the vampires at bay while making a mess. See? That garlic did it. Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you're new here. If you don't know who I am, my name is Cody. I am a writer, and today I thought we would do something a little fun together, okay? So hear me out. Yes, you have thus far seen me on my writing journey, but obviously as a writer, I love to read as well. And I was, minding my business literally at work today, and I was, I usually have YouTube playing in the background while I'm working, all that good stuff. I saw someone today, like, it was an older video, they were doing like an April reading recap, and I've never done a reading recap. So I figured, why not record a video where I share with you all the things that I've read so far in 2024. But not only that, because I think it'd be fun for our recap videos to kind of incorporate something else that I really enjoy doing, which is cooking. And so today I'm going to be cooking with you guys, showing you how to make some, I guess you can call it Italian food, some sort of like lemon herby chicken pasta, because that just sounds really good to me. So I was like, why don't I cook while I tell you guys about the books I've read so far this year. And I can show you guys some books that I picked up this weekend that I plan on reading next month, I guess this month in June by the time this video is uploaded. So without further ado, let me get this camera positioned correctly and let's get started. If you're excited for today's video, please make sure to leave it a thumbs up. It doesn't cost you a thing, but it helps me out tremendously. And if you like this kind of content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We're gonna have a good time. I'm gonna teach you how to cook some good food, some good Italian food, okay? It'll be a great time. That was a horrible accent and I apologize. Let me get situated and we are gonna start cooking. Okay, so I have already got all my stuff laid out here. I got me a big skillet. This is my tried and trusty true wok. I love her. And then I've already got some water starting to boil over here for the pasta. We're gonna be just using some chicken, and I'm making like enough for me to eat on for the week. That way I have a very busy second half of the week, and so I just wanna have something in the fridge, already cooked. All I gotta do is warm it up and eat it. So pasta is one of those things that warms up pretty easily. So I figured that's what I would do. Anyway, I got chicken, got some protein rotini pasta. I got some Parmesan cheese, and this is the sauce that I'm gonna be starting with as a base. It's a lemon pesto sauce from Trader Joe's. Very excited about that. I was feeling like a chicken piccata kind of thing, which is usually like a creamy lemon sauce. So I figured that would be a good one. And then I got my seasonings, the standard seasonings: salt, black pepper, Italian seasoning, garlic, and onion powder. That's like those, well, minus the Italian seasoning. The other four pretty much go in any kind of food: garlic, onion, salt, pepper. It's just the base. And then Italian seasoning because we're doing Italian. I have my list pulled up, so I'm going to talk about some of the books that I've read this year while I get my chicken prepared. If we all go back to January of this year, there was this series that was all over my For You page, and I told myself that I wasn't gonna do it. I wasn't gonna fall for the trap. What did I do? I fell for the trap. Yes, it's Fourth Wing and Iron Flame, okay? So those are my first reads of the year, all right? Now, I loved them, okay? And I know that there is a lot of conflict out there around these books, and I saw someone's review that was like, if you know what you're going into it for, then it is a wonderful book. And I could not agree more. Like, definitely don't go into this book expecting it to be some sort of literary masterpiece, because it is absolutely not. But I had a great time reading the book, and I feel like that was kind of the intended purpose. And I feel like that's kind of the intended purpose of any art, is to just escape reality. And just because, you don't exactly like the writing style or whatever, what have you, it's still a really enjoyable ride and experience, and It was my first ever romantasy. While I don't necessarily, nor am I used to reading, you know, naughty things happening on the page, like, I really enjoyed the story. I connected with the characters, and while those parts were jarring to me, it wasn't like anything that would like make me want to stop reading. So it didn't like bother me, but it's something I wasn't used to seeing while I was reading. So I was like, oh, there's some things happening. I feel like I have to like shield my book away from people, you know? I really enjoyed them. They were a fun time. I love magic. I love dragons. And then also I really like the representation that Rebecca Yarros does. Violet, if you don't know, if you haven't read it, the main character, she suffers from like a physical ailment where basically like her joints they pop out really easily. And obviously if you are training to be in the army, that is kind of a huge hindrance to have. But I'm pretty sure it's based on like an actual like physical ailment that the author has. So, you know, I love seeing the representation there. I enjoyed it. That's all I had to say. We can agree to disagree. But overall, I gave them both a 5-star. Actually, that's a lie. I gave Fourth Wing 4 stars. And then I gave Iron Flame 5 stars. Just because I feel like by the end of Iron Flame, I was so invested in these characters that I was like, after reading the end of Iron Flame, if you know, you know. I rated it the 5 stars just based on the emotional reaction I had, and when I was having that reaction, I was like, wow, the author did a really good job of making me like these characters and root for these characters, and for that, they deserve a 5-star rating. So, I'm very excited for Onyx Storm to come out in January. It's going to be a sleigh. I already know it is. And I just got to find out what happens with my boy Xaden. I got to find out because... Anyway, no spoilers, by the way. So the next... I guess I'm going to do this in like a chunk. The next chunk that I read, because it's all by one author, is Freida McFadden. Now, I discovered Freida McFadden towards the end of last year. Around like Halloween time, because always around Halloween time I love to get into some horror stories, some mystery thriller situations, you know, stuff like that. And one of my friends recommended a book by her called Never Lie, and so I was like, okay, well, let me read it. Y'all, I ate that thing up. I have never read a book so fast in my life. I think I finished it in less than 24 hours. Like, I was that invested. And from there, it just kind of spiraled. So, yeah, of all of the books that I've read, and I think out of the 14 books on this list, Freida McFadden is 6 of them. So she's almost half of this list. So One by One was kind of like my least favorite out of all of them. It just kind of, I don't know, kind of felt mad to me. And because I had just read another one of hers and it was like super exciting and good. And I was like, okay, I'm ready for the next thing. And I'm ready for the next big, goop to happen, to be gooped by Miss McFadden. And that one just, it was okay. I think I gave it a 3 stars. But anyway, enough about that. The next one I read was The Housemaid. Now listen, y'all. I love the Housemaid series. There's the third book is coming out this month. And I am super thrilled. It's called The Housemaid is Watching, I believe, is the third book. But yeah, I read Housemaid 1, and then Housemaid 2 is called The Housemaid's Secret. Yes, and then the third one is Housemaid is Watching. So, very excited to read that. Spoiler alert, that's going to be on my TBR later for June, but we'll get there. Then I read The Wife Upstairs. Again, it was cute. I love a little, Freida does a really good job of making you believe one thing is the case, and even though you're like, no, I know that's not the case, I know you're lying to me, she has a way to convince you, like, no, this actually is the case, but there's something else, and you're like, oh wait, I believe you, and then it's like, boom, just kidding, it was not the case. And I'm like, how does she do that? Because, like, I've read many of her books now. I think I've read like 9 or 10 total of her books, and every time I'm like, see, I wanted to believe you, but once again, you have lied to me and my family. And I love it. The next one I read was The Coworker by her. That one was a little strange. If you know, you know. If you really like turtles, then maybe read it. Again, that's an inside joke if you happen to have read it. But if you don't like turtles, then I probably wouldn't recommend it. And then the last one that I read by her is The Teacher, and I picked this one up. It was very good. Like the twist, that final little twist, did not see it coming whatsoever. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. But that one was my favorite, and I think I read it because I used to be a teacher, obviously not in the circumstances of the book, but it's just always fun to see a thriller that involves a job that you once had. But those are all the books that I read by Miss Freida McFadden. Take a quick little break to spray my pan. I got some avocado oil spray. Because we can't have it sticking up in here. No, we can't. No, we can't. We're going to take a little bit of salt. Now, it looks like a lot of salt, but it's a lot of chicken. Okay, everybody calm down. A little Italian seasoning. And listen, when I tell y'all I don't measure nothing, I just go by what my heart tells me to do. That's it. So don't come to me and say, oh, you got a recipe? Be like, no. But I got stuff on the floor because I can't use my hands. But if you're like, hey, you got a recipe? I'd be like, absolutely not, I do not. How could you ask me such a crazy question? Because I never have cooked with a recipe. The only time I'll ever really use a recipe is if I'm baking, because baking has to be specific. But food like this, you put as little or as much seasoning as you want on there and you call it a day. So now I'm going to rub my seasoning mix all over this chicken. All right, I'm going to wash my hands. We'll be right back. All right, I got my heat going now on my skillet. Once that gets a little warm, we're going to throw the chicken in there. But the next book on my list is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. Now picture it with me, okay? This story I thought was just a really cool concept, and I love a good meta concept. One of my favorite movies or scary movies of all time is the Scream franchise, because they're so meta and they're so quick to make fun of themselves in those movies, and I love that. Well, this is basically the book version of that, because it's, this woman who's in a cabin all by herself. She's on the beach, very remote beach, and she loves to read, duh, and she leaves a bad review on Goodreads, right? Well, the author of this book got his feelings hurt and decided, oh, you're gonna give me a bad reading on Goodreads? Well, I'm just gonna try to murder you. What? I saw that, blurb on the back. Also, none of that is spoilers. You can find all of that out on the back of the book. But I was like, how is this going to go down? And it was very good. I think I gave that one a 4-star. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And also, I'm really picky with my 5 stars. So also there's that. But I love all of them. Even if I love them sometimes. Anyway, what am I saying? The next book that I read was Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Now, Riley Sager has been one of my newfound writers that I really enjoy. And one of the first book that I read by him was Final Girls, and I just love the idea of, a group of girls that have been the last surviving victim of a murder that happened somewhere, and they're the only one that survived. Love that. And so I read Lock Every Door by him because I wanted to see what else he had. And this one, I had no idea the ending was coming. It was wild. It deals a lot. So basically it follows this girl who is, she's not the most economically wealthy person. She's actually pretty poor. And there's this really rich and ritzy place, and they don't want their rooms to be vacant, because if they're vacant, then nobody's, is going to want to fight to pay for however expensive it is. So they like to pay people to stay in their rooms until someone rents it out, because, it's good for the property value and the look of the property, whatever, blase, blase. Well, anyway, they're paying this girl $4,000 a month to stay in this apartment, and then some weird stuff starts happening, and then it turns into this whole thing. I was expecting it to be, I don't want to say too much, because if I say something, it might ruin it. I'm just going to say this. The type of book that I thought it was going to be was not the type of book that it was. And I'll leave it at that, because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone that's interested in reading it. Now, my water is boiling. I'm about to put the chicken into the skillet. We should hear a nice little sizzle. Sizzle, sizzle. Get rid of that cutting board. Gonna spread my chickens out and let those go. Also, since my water's boiling, I'm gonna go ahead and pour in le pasta. Alexa, set a timer for 7 minutes.
Good evening, Cody. 7 minutes, starting now.
Thanks, Queen. All right, so while this is cooking, the next book that I read was Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. Now, I got this book because as far as like being a horror genre person, I do like slasher, I do like a little bit of gore, but when I tell you this book made me cringe multiple times from some of the gory things it was describing, it was wild. When this came across my feed, I was in the process of watching all of the Hell House movies, which revolves around like a haunted house that keeps, you know, people keep popping up things where this haunted house and people go in and they end up like going missing because they're dead, they get possessed, they go through hell, I don't know. But this book is kind of similar to that, where it's a touring haunted house, but people are disappearing, but that's because they're being mutilated somewhere in the back of the haunted house. It was very that, but also the graphic content mixed with the adult content, the sexual content. It was a little much for me to handle, to just read on a normal basis. I'm more of like, when I'm reading, I want something like cozy and fun. If there's a little bit of spice, whatever, that's fine. But if it's predominantly just like guts being pulled out of someone while you're doing nasty things with them, no, don't do it. If that's your thing, go for it. But it really wasn't my thing. But I appreciated it for what it was, which was to be, you know, shocking and graphic. It did well in that regard. The next book that I read was, it was called Ashes by Iona Wayland. Now, Iona Wayland, she is a self-published author, and I came across her because I'm a big fan of Jenna Moressi's channel, and they do live writing sprints every Monday, and Iona Wayland is always the guest on the sprint, so I've, you know, done a few of those sprints and, you know, gotten to know who she is as a person, what she does. She has all kinds of really cool stuff. But I finally read this book by her, Ashes. And basically what it does is it, like the elements of dark fantasy with like, you know, the creatures and death and things like that, but it really turns it into this wholesome story of how to mourn the loss of someone that you loved more than anything. And it was so beautifully done, and I really enjoyed it. And so if you are a fan of like a cozy mystery that also, you know, tackles a lot of like life lessons, and also she is like an expert on folklore and things like that. She has a podcast called Creepy Core and Folklore, and she also does like crystal ball readings. Like, she does all kinds of stuff, and she's fabulous. Love her. Go read her book. The next book that I read was The Church Beneath the Roots by Felix Blackwell. Now, Church Beneath the Roots is actually a prequel to a book that I had read called Stolen Tongues. It deals a lot with like Native American mythology and things like that, and a lot of their like cultures and beliefs and practices. And the only reason that I read this book all the way through to the end was because I had already read the first book that came out, even though it technically takes place after this book. And my only reason is because there was so much time that was spent repeating things that we already knew. It really took me out of the story. But, I mean, overall, I like how everything was set up to, you know, complement the book that was already out. And it did flow very nicely into the next book. So if you want to start with Church Beneath the Roots and go into the next one, Alexa, stop my timer. You can absolutely do that. Okay, now the last step of this is I'm going to take my lemon pesto sauce. I'm just going to dump it all into this pan. It's going to be the same pan that I cooked the chicken in, so that is going to be really nice. And then what I like to do is I like to put just like a splash of water in here, shake it up really hard, and then dump it all out. That way you get all of the contents of the sauce, and then you just, as you heat it up, the water just evaporates out. So, also, I have already taken the pasta off of the stove. It is currently in the sink. I have ran some cold water over it so that it would stop the cooking process. So sauce is in, and I think, just because I'm a grown-up and I can, I'm going to add, I found one of these Philadelphia cream cheese packets that we get in our HelloFreshes, and we're gonna add that in there just to make it an extra creamy little lemon sauce moment, because that just sounds good to me. So that's what we're gonna do. Look how beautiful she looks. Ooh, yum, seasoned chicken. But while this is doing that, let me tell you about the last book on my list. So my most recent read was Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. 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 But anyway, we finished that book most recently, and let me tell you, I really enjoyed it. I think the thing that I liked the most about it was how immersive it was, because you were getting these pictures, like there's pictures all throughout the book, and you're seeing these pictures as the main character is also seeing them and discovering them. And so you really feel like you're going on this journey with them and discovering these things with them. And just the pictures are creepy as it is. Like if you're a fan of like, you know, classic horror movies where like the kid sees dead people and they like draw pictures of them doing things around the house or standing behind their mom and dad. Things like that. If you like that kind of stuff, then I think you'll really like it. And also, there was a twist at the end of that book that I was like, excuse me, what? Excuse me, what? It was crazy. So, highly recommend reading that one. That is all of the books that I have read so far in 2024. I am going to finish up this dinner here, which is really just letting the sauce reduce and then dumping everything into the pan together to mix up. And then we're done. And I'll check back in with you whenever it's done to show you the new books that I just bought. Okay? Bye! Boom, hello, we're in my living room. Also, here's the finished product. Ooh, cheesy lemon chicken pasta is what I'm gonna call her. And then I'm also pairing that with a little bit of homemade strawberry sangria. Let's get into these books that I bought, shall we? So I went, as you saw from my little short that I posted, I went to a little adult book fair at a store local here called Novel, and it was so much fun. I got a little ticket, and with your ticket you got a tote bag, you got 10% off your entire purchase, and you also got a alcoholic drink included. So you can have like a little drink to sip while you're perusing the book. So it's really nice, really cool. But look at this bag. It says Leaving Reality, Entering Fiction by... Is that not the cutest little bag you've ever seen? I love it, and I'll be using it everywhere. It's like a nice little... I can take this to the beach. I can take it to the bookstore to use. I can take it to the grocery store to save on plastics because we're going to save the planet and the turtles, okay? Anyway, she's cute. Love her. Now the books. I was talked to you about Riley Sager. I've loved his past couple books that I've read. So I did pick up Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Very excited about this one. I feel like this one's going to be a really fun read, and I really like his writing style, so I know that I'm most likely just going to like speed through this, and I love that. The next book that I got is The Perfect Couple, or One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware, and honestly, the only reason that I got this was because it is signed, and we love that. Also, I left off my list earlier, I just recently read In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware, and I really enjoyed it. It was one of those where I kind of had to get used to the English vernacular, like the British vernacular that she uses to describe a bachelor party. Like I didn't know that, you know, a hen and a bachelor party were basically the same thing. And if they're not, and I'm completely wrong, then that's on me. Other than like, once I got used to it, I love her writing style and just the way that she builds the tension. Like you can feel it building, like you can see it building on the page, and it's so cool how she does it. And there were a couple of times where I was reading a section and found myself kind of getting like nervous because I was like, oh my God, like what's going to happen? Like this tension is building and it's going to break at some point and I'm not ready for it. I loved that book. And so when I saw this one, I was like, duh. And then the fact that it was also signed, I was like, double duh. So we got One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. Now, the last thing that I bought, it was actually a recommendation that I saw on YouTube. Natalie Jane Shields, author tuber on here on the YouTubes, talked about how much she enjoyed reading Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo, but she did recommend that you read the Shadow and Bone series. Not necessarily because the stories are connected, but just so you can better understand the world that the second series takes place in. And so I made an impulse decision. I figured, okay, I have 10% off, might as well go big and get like a set, am I right? So, you guessed it. I got the entire Shadow and Bone trilogy right here. And just look how pretty these covers are. You have like the beautiful blue and the gold, and then the red, and then the green. Oh, they're gorgeous. Gorgeous to look at. And yes, I have already started Shadow and Bone. I haven't gotten very far. I think I'm literally on chapter 2. I am. So I've not gotten far, but I'm very excited to read this because I've really been wanting to find a good like fantasy series to jump into. So I think that this will be my like fantasy series to get me through the end of the year, with obviously some thrillers sprinkled in, but those 5 are on my TBR. And then I also have The Housemaid is Watching by Frida McFadden. I'm going to be downloading that on my Kindle because she does all of her books on Kindle Unlimited. We love her for that. And that is all I have for you guys today. If you like the video, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe down below. I post on Mondays. Also, let me know if you like this sort of content where I talk about books that I've read while also cooking, because I love to read and I love to cook, and so I feel like that'd be a really fun way to just combine 2 of my favorite things to do and to share it with you guys here on YouTube. With all that out of the way, until the next time I see you guys, bye!